morning. Welcome to the last but not least session of our virtual state conference, Understanding the Litter Laws and Effective Enforcement Strategies. My name is Cabell Mouton, and I'm the Affiliate and Grant Manager for Keep Louisiana Beautiful. Today, you are going to be able to learn from a panel that is going to discuss litter and illegal dumping laws, enforcement challenges and strategies to assist enforcement, such as ordinances, surveillance cameras, hotlines, and media campaigns. You're also going to hear from two state agencies that are charged with enforcing the litter laws. Hey, if you know who those two state agencies are, drop them down in the comments and let's see if you know who these two state agencies are. All of these strategies play an important role to eradicate litter. A few housekeeping notes before we get started. All of you are off camera and muted for the duration of this session. However, we would love to hear from you. So please drop your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, as well as any comments. Just make sure those comments are pertaining to the session at hand. All of our sessions for the virtual state conference are being recorded. You will find these on KLB's website, keeplouisianabeautiful.org, sometime in early December. So please share with your colleagues or anyone that you think that this information could be beneficial to their work. All right, let's get started. We have a packed morning. The Louisiana Aquatic Litter Alliance authored the Louisiana Local Government Litter Ordinance Handbook as a tool to help strengthen litter enforcement on a local level. This publication serves as a turnkey how-to guide with time-tested solutions for developing and implementing a litter control program in municipal and parish governments. Any parishes on the session today or municipalities will be interested to hear about this handbook if they would like to increase local litter and illegal dumping enforcement. You will greatly appreciate this presentation. Presenting this handbook this morning is Mike Daniels. For the past 11 years, Mike has worked as criminal enforcement counsel for the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality's Criminal Investigation Section. Mike works with 5 commissioned law enforcement investigators who investigate criminal violators of the Louisiana Environmental Quality Act and has been named a special assistant district attorney in 7 parishes. He's also a very good friend of Keep Louisiana Beautiful. Welcome, Mike. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I am happy to be here. I appreciate the relationship that the Department of Environmental Quality has with Keep Louisiana Beautiful. I appreciate the opportunity to come this morning and visit with you and speak to you about this topic. And I really appreciate those of you who have gotten up on this beautiful morning and are sitting in front of your computer, whether you be at a kitchen table or in your home office or maybe still in bed. After my presentation, you're going to hear some great enforcement strategies from some enforcement folks here in Louisiana. And I would add a third question or answer to the question, what state agencies enforce environmental laws, criminal statutes in Louisiana? There might be a third one that you hopefully will know a little bit more about after I finish my presentation. So this morning I have been asked, next slide please. Next slide please. So about 5 years ago, a bunch of non-governmental organizations and state agencies came together under an umbrella of the Environmental Protection Agency to work on aquatic litter. As you know, and I'm sure you know since you're involved in this field, a lot of our litter ends up in our waterways, in our bayous, in our rivers, in our lakes, and ultimately into our larger water bodies like the Gulf and the ocean. And so we try to develop a strategy to combat that, and putting all these minds together, the way to do it was to have local municipalities and parishes enact some litter laws. There are already litter laws on the books in Title 30 of the revised statutes that Wildlife and Fisheries and State Police and your sheriffs enforce. But the idea was to get the municipalities and the parishes more involved in litter enforcement. And the result of that was the Louisiana Local Government Litter Ordinance Template Handbook. And this is the cover of the handbook. When we were looking for the cover, someone came up with this shot of an alligator with a water bottle in its mouth. And this being Louisiana and the topic of the material, we couldn't find a better picture. And it really brings home the point that not only are we protecting our environment for ourselves, but also for the people and the animals that we share our environment with. So this is the template of the book. The book is about 200 pages hard copy. Next slide, please. But for those of us who don't like to cut a lot of trees down and print a lot of things, the handbook is also available online. If you are a good typist and you want to type the long website address in, it's the one in blue beginning https@edms. For those of you not familiar with the Department of Environmental Quality, just about all of our documents are online, available to the public 24/7. It's a great tool for use by anybody, but including this book is online. So you can either type in the whole web address as I have in blue above, or if you go to our web page and look about halfway down, you should see a box that says EDMS. I have it circled here on the screen to help you find it. When you click on that, you'll go to another screen and it'll say, take me to EDMS. When you go to EDMS, you type in that number that's I have highlighted in blue, 100548868, and that will take you right to the handbook. And you can save it down as a PDF, you can print it, and have easy access to it without having to print up a whole lot of pages. And you can carry it around on a thumb drive if you want to share it or email it. So having electronic format is really the best way to do it. And here's two ways to get it, is either going directly and typing in the long web address, or going to the department's electronic data management system, which is the abbreviated EDMS, typing in that number, hitting run, and it'll take you right to it. Next slide, please. So this is the table of contents. And when I told you it was over 250 pages, you can see why. It really is, the guide really is a tool that can take you from beginning to end, and how to enact ordinances, how to enforce those ordinances, how to run a litter court, modeled after the great litter court example that they have in St. Tammany Parish, headed up by Rick Moore, who you'll hear from in a second. And then it also has some other information and guides and examples of ordinances, St. Tammany and Lafayette, which were two of the models that we looked at when we came this together. But it has a litter speech, which I think is a speech that is given to promote why litter enforcement is important, why going through all this work is important. You can see then there is the model ordinances, and there's also a comparison table, which I'll show in a minute, which compares existing state law to the model ordinances and some of the changes we made and why. It shows you how to cite people for it. It gives you an example of a summons. It really is a beginning to end, turnkey, ready to go product that you can take and use. It can be modified to your own needs, but it really is a great place to start if you are interested in beginning a litter court modeled again after St. Tammany. I know Lafayette has a litter court, I believe. Grant Parish has a very successful and publicized litter court. I believe Shreveport probably does as well. But this really was intended to be used by all 64 parishes. It was intended to get your constables and JPs. As you know, nowadays, our traditional law enforcement, whether it be state police, wildlife and fisheries, sheriffs, local police, are really stretched to the as much as they can do. And sometimes they have to prioritize other crimes over litter. This encourages your constables and JPs who have statutory authority over litter to get them more involved. and encourage them. And we'll see some of the ways we try to encourage them. But this is the table of contents and all the things included in the guide. Next slide, please. So this is a table which compares existing state law to our model ordinance. In preparing this document, even though I had been involved in this field for many years, I was not aware that there was a separate crime for littering of the waters. And there is. So we have incorporated that into the model. In some instances, we kept the same fine as state law. In some instances, we raised it. In some instances, we lowered it. If you see where we lowered it, it is usually to keep it below $1,000. And the reason being is if a crime has a penalty over $1,000, then the defendant is entitled to a trial by jury. And that is not something constables and justices of the peace can handle. So all of our fines are capped at $1,000. So we stay below that threshold so that these cases can be handled by the justices of the peace. There are also, as many of you know, and I think Keep Louisiana Beautiful was very involved in this, a separate penalties if the litter is cigarette or cigarette butts. So we added that provision also to the littering of the waterways. Then the criminal provision next is gross littering. I think that the state statute for gross littering is a fantastic tool. In fact, some of the criminal investigators we here have at DQ, and that's kind of a hint to the third agency, if you're paying attention, have begun using gross littering. For one, the penalty is now, this is old table, is now $900. It's a sure thing. And being at $900, the defendant does not have a right to a jury trial. So prosecutors are more willing to accept those charges. The other thing about gross littering is like the other criminal statutes in the Environmental Quality Act, the Louisiana Environmental Quality Act, cleanup is required. So if somebody's convicted of gross littering, a condition of their probation should be that they have to clean up the litter, which is a fantastic thing. And it's probably our #1 goal of all litter enforcement. And the other thing is that the investigating agencies and the prosecuting agencies can get their cost of investigation back. That's one of the things we at DEQ are very strict on, is that we always bring to the district attorney when we bring him our cases, how much time our investigators spent on that case, and ask for that back. And we've been very successful in getting our cost of investigation back. So even if you aren't successful in getting your local municipality or parish to adopt these litter guide, getting them to enforce the gross littering statute is fantastic. Waste tires can be prosecuted under gross littering, large amounts of household garbage, refrigerators, mattresses, all those big things you see could be, okay, there's a question. What constitutes gross littering? Gross littering is pretty much anything greater than, let's say, somebody throwing a McDonald's bag out of the window. Gross littering really involves tires, automobile parts, gas tanks, mattresses, refrigerators, washers and dryers, large amounts of household garbage, big garbage bags. That really is gross littering. It's defined in the statute, and your local law enforcement would be familiar with that. So I encourage everybody to really promote gross littering if you're not able to get your own statute. What we did in the model statutes also have the gross littering, where we pretty much tried to mirror the penalties for the state statute. Again, keeping in mind, we want to keep everything below $1,000. Next slide, please. And so simple littering, that's when, the old example is a guy in a pickup truck and some newspaper fly out of the back, or maybe a cigarette packet. That's your simple littering. Your intentional littering would be more the person tossing out their McDonald's bag. I hate to pick on McDonald's. They're any kind of trash in the cars they're driving along. Or I've seen this so many times, and it drives me crazy, is somebody will have a convenience store or a fast food cup, and they'll come to a stoplight and they'll stop and they'll open the door and they'll put the cup on the ground, and then the light turns green and they drive off. So that's your intentional littering. And again, as you can see, we tried to keep the penalties somewhat consistent with what the state statutes were. And again, keeping it below the $900 threshold, and keeping it that so that we weren't involved in jury trial. Next slide, please. Okay, a question I can read is, how many employees and forces does DEQ have? Well, we have probably on our civil side, we have inspectors who enforce the civil, regulatory, administrative side of the Environmental Quality Act. And we have regional offices in New Orleans, Bayou Lafourche, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, Lake Charles, Pineville, Monroe, and Shreveport. And in those offices, we have, and this is just a rough guesstimate, 10 to 20 civil inspectors in each one of those offices who inspect. They inspect illegal dumping, they inspect plants, they inspect underground storage tanks, just about the whole gamut of things. They work on remediation of prior contaminated sites. So we have inspectors in all those regional offices. On criminal enforcement, which is where my background, we currently have 5 investigators. We have 3 here in Baton Rouge, and they mainly cover New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and a little bit west towards Lafayette. And then we have an investigator in Lake Charles, and then we have an investigator in Shreveport. And so those 5 are our criminal investigators who focus on the environmental crimes in the Louisiana Environmental Quality Act, which there are specific crimes for disposal, emission, or discharging of substances, a felony if it's something that can endanger human life and health, a misdemeanor if it doesn't. And then we have some, in the Louisiana Water Quality Act, we have some statutes which mirror the Clean Water Act for water violations. We have hazardous waste, criminal violations. We have a statute if you make false statements to the department. So those 5 investigators stay really busy covering the whole state. And we partner a lot with Wildlife and Fisheries and State Police and our local sheriffs and police departments. We kind of, because we only have 5 investigators, our best way to force multiply and have cover a bigger area is to partner with those people. And we have a great relationship. I can think right now, off the top of my head, that we currently have 3 or 4 investigations where we're working with Wildlife and Fisheries. I know we've worked prior investigations with Louisiana State Police. We are a member of the Louisiana Environmental Crimes Task Force, which involves the US EPA Criminal Investigation Division. State Police is a member of that. They have a full-time investigator assigned to the task force. So there are more people than you see behind the scenes out there criminally enforcing litter laws and illegal dumping and the other laws I described. So we have commercial littering, and then the distribution of the fines. As you can see, a very conscious effort was made to ensure, when it's a local ordinance being enforced by the Justice of the Peace and the constable, to give them, this is the carrot, to get them to want to be involved in this process, is that the majority of the fines go to them. So you can see that that's where we have modeled it. Of course, your own municipality could divvy up the fines the way they want. We also made sure that a portion of the fines went to litter abatement. That was very important to everybody. Another big thing is the last 2 rows on the table is signs. Rick Moore brought from St. Tammany that they have a gigantic problem with signs littering the side of roadways and utility columns, poles. So in the model ordinance, we address that issue. That's not so much addressed in the state statutes, but we tried to address it here in the model rules. And I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about, especially during campaign time or otherwise, signs for house painting or we'll buy houses, you name it. There's all kinds of signs being stuck in medians. I almost said neutral grounds because I'm from New Orleans, but medians and other sides of the road. And so we included that in a model ordinance to address an issue Rick brought to the table, but everybody agreed was important. Next slide, please. And another really big thing we did was, if you look at the current state litter law, you can only litter on public property or on property belonging to another. Under state statutes, you can't litter on your own private property. But if it's big enough, it could be illegal disposal of a waste, and it could be a criminal statute. And so the local folks are handcuffed from enforcing litter laws if they go to a residence and it's just got garbage bags stacked 10 feet high and it's just disgusting. They're handcuffed and can't do anything criminally, and usually have to go under an administrative civil nuisance violation to try to get cleaned up. Well, that didn't sit well with the people who put this together. It didn't sit well with me, to be honest with you. And so in our definition of littering, it includes on private property as well, so that you can have the hammer of the possible criminal penalties in the enforcement of litter laws, even if it occurs on private property. This was a big deal. We had a lot of discussion about it, and I think it's a real improvement over the state litter law, which is limited to public property or on a property of another for it to be litter. Otherwise, it becomes a nuisance, something like that. Next slide, please. So I'm getting close to my time, and I don't want to cut anybody else's time, but I want to tell this little story about this slide. So I was sitting at my desk, my phone rang. It was someone affiliated with Keep Louisiana Beautiful, and I think I caught her off guard because I actually answered my phone. And she in fact said, I really didn't expect you to answer your phone, but at the end of the slideshow, I'll give you my card, and it's the number directly to my desk. And if you call me, I'll answer it. So she wanted to report a illegal dumping site and wanted our investigators to look at it. But when I started asking questions, she really couldn't give me even an answer of where it is. She didn't know a street address. She knew it was located near a business owned by a friend. So I had to find the business, and through the magic of Google Earth and Google Street View, we were able to find a dump site and begin an investigation and direct our civil inspectors to go take a look at it. But the first thing is if you want to report a litter violation, one of the best tools we have is the Litterbug Hotline that the Wildlife and Fisheries mans. And I've heard numerous times people complain that they've had trouble with this hotline. And I have a dozen times, as recently as yesterday morning, called this number, had a very pleasant person answer the phone and would be willing to take my complaint. Now, I told him I was just testing the system and didn't have a complaint, but certainly this number is manned, I believe, 24/7, and if you want to get involved and you want to report somebody for littering, that's where I would go to start with. And of course, they're going to ask you the same questions that everybody in law enforcement is going to ask you: the who, what, when, where, and how. These are a few of the who's: the name of the person, a license plate number, the where, an address, a location, a landmark, such as near my friend's property and an address for that. When, sooner rather than later. Waiting 2 days to report it, that's going to make the investigation very difficult. What? Again, demolition debris, waste tires, trash, and pictures. Hopefully, Major Owens and Trooper Scrantz can spend a little bit of their time and talk again about reporting violations and what information they need is the actual boots on the ground, and Rick Moore as well, to enforce these violations. Next slide, please. Okay, so I was not forced, but tasked with talking about the laws. Abraham Lincoln once said, "Laws without enforcement are just good advice." So the remaining of your presenters will be talking about the enforcement. But really, we can have all the laws we want on the books, and enforcement really is the key to making a difference. Next slide, please. That's my card. The phone number, 225-219-0301, rings directly at my desk. If you call it, and it's a local area code, and I don't think you're a spam or somebody else calling, I'll answer it, and I'll do my best to help you directly or to point you in the direction of who can help you. Lastly, I can't believe I put my presentation together and didn't directly mention our own criminal investigators. Hopefully Susan can put this in the Q&A section, but if you want to contact the Department of Environmental Quality criminal investigators, whether it be about illegal dumping or wastewater violations or air violations or anything else you might have a question about, the best way to reach them is at 225-219-3944. 225-219-3944. Thank y'all very much. I'll be happy to answer any questions now or later. I'll be here the whole day.
Thank you, Mike. You have a lot of fans attending this morning, and a lot of people are happy to see you this morning.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yes. So, Mike, I just want to thank you again and ask you to hang on to the end of the session. There may be some more questions. There's a lot of people that have some questions. Maybe we could bring you back for another extensive webinar. A lot of questions about tires, the dumping of tires. So we hope that you'll come back, but we'll see at the end of the session.
Tires, that almost gives me post-traumatic stress syndrome like you. It's the bane of my existence. I'll be happy to talk to you about it. And please, I'll stick around for questions.
Thank you, Mike. I also want to mention that this handbook, template and handbook is available on Keep Louisiana Beautiful's website under tools and resources. That's keeplouisianabeautiful.org. Instead of typing in that long URL that just looks like the alphabet, actually, go to Keep Louisiana Beautiful under tools and resources, and that handbook does live there. Okay. All right. Next, we have two guests, a major from Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries and a trooper from the Louisiana State Police. The Wildlife and Fisheries Agency and State Police are the two state agencies charged with enforcing the state litter laws. These two agency representatives are going to give us an overview of the state's litter laws and enforcement efforts, and also the challenges. So feel free to submit questions in the Q&A box, or mention any comments in the comments box. We have Major Rick Owens with us this morning with Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries. Rick is a 25-year law enforcement veteran with Wildlife and Fisheries Enforcement Division and currently supervises patrol functions and field coordination for 35 parishes within the state. Welcome, Rick. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Joining Mayor Owens is Trooper First Class Taylor Scrantz from the Public Affairs Section with Louisiana State Police. Taylor currently serves as the Publication Information Officer for Troop A in Baton Rouge. He is also certified as a field sobriety test instructor, advanced roadside impaired driving enforcement instructor, field training officer, taser instructor, and drug recognition expert. Welcome, Taylor. Thank you for being here this morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for inviting Louisiana State Police to participate in today's webinar.
I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Rick, if you would like to go first, and then we'll hear from Taylor.
Yes, ma'am, that'll be fine. Good morning, everybody. Thanks again for having us. My name again is Major Rick Owens, and I'm a 25-year veteran with Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. Trooper First Class Scrantz and I will be trying to speak on some of the various litter laws on the state level, as well as some of the enforcement strategies that we apply related to the actual enforcement of the litter laws. Quickly, the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries operates on a statewide basis, and we have agents assigned to every parish in the state with typically, hopefully, at least 2 agent stations. So 200 field agents is a number that we operate on. In addition to our primary duties, the litter enforcement plays a key role in our department's mission of conservation law enforcement. We take the litter laws very seriously in the state, and we're very proud to be a part of that action. the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries Law Enforcement Division is the leading law enforcement agency in the state for litter enforcement and have been for several years. First slide, please. Second slide. Okay, here's an example of a graph. This was an accumulation of violations based off patrol hours. This is a snapshot of the last 5 years from 15-16 through the current year. You can see on average that the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries Enforcement Division averages approximately 628 citations per year, with a patrol hour balance that breaks down to 15 to 17 hours per case at some times. So we see a fluctuation up and down in small increments, but that's primarily based off of different items such as a particular hurricane season that may consume some of our hours related to search and rescue efforts, things of that nature. You can see in the current 1920 timeframe where we're sitting on 323 gross litter citations and 332 simple litter citations. The COVID-19 situation has limited us on some of our personal contacts. And so that's a challenge that we faced as a division, as a state agency on how to be effective and how to maintain our enforcement efforts and keep in mind the parameters that are given to us as far as making contact with the public, how to go about our investigations in new, more creative ways, and how to follow through on some of these investigations based off of some of these challenges that we're currently seeing. But statistically, we do average and stay fairly consistent to the 600 to 650 citations per year. So off of a 200 agent balance, we're happy with those numbers. Next slide, please.
Rick, we have a couple of questions. First, how many enforcement agents are there in Department of Wildlife and Fisheries?
A full staff for us would be 231 agents. We currently operate in the 220 to 215 agent range, but field personnel is on average approximately 200 field agents.
And Rick, what would you say are some of the challenges that you all face for not being able to issue more tickets?
Primarily, I would say it's just a balance of our other job duties. Litter does become seasonal for us at times based off complaints and demands. Certain times of the year, for example, hurricane season, our resources may be focused in search and rescue efforts, hunting seasons, and that type of nature. So it's a balance that we have to manage with the different responsibilities we have with our other duties.
Yes. All right, thank you.
Okay. In front of us here, here's a quick slide for one of our northern supervisors that gives some direction to some of the district attorneys and the help we've received from them in the past, and how the education and awareness programs in the state have played over into the district attorney field, and the willingness of these district attorneys to prosecute violators has greatly contributed to helping us change the culture in some of the rural areas of the state. Next slide, please. Here we see a breakdown of litter citations by parish over the last 2 years. You can see clearly that some of our higher averages of citations focus around some of our more urban areas. We see Rapides Parish and Ouachita Parish. It is a note to say that a lot of this dumping that we find is in the rural areas outside of the parishes, and we have people that live in the urban areas traveling outside their areas to dump their trash. So while this may show that there's a high level of citations being issued in a particular urban parish, the actual litter may be occurring in the surrounding rural parishes that people are leaving their area to travel to dump. One other thing I'd like to touch on that was touched on earlier is our Ldwf anti-litter hotline. Again, that number is 888-LITRBUG or 548-7284. As Mike mentioned, this is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week hotline that is manned by our actual Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries dispatchers. So there's always going to be a live person available at the end of that line if somebody needs to reach out and contact us. We take these complaints very seriously, and we're going to check into them regardless of the amount of information that we can gather. That doesn't always mean that we're going to be successful in the follow-up, but we would encourage the public that when they call to try to provide as much information as they can related to the particular incident, the location, anything that they can gather that can help us with our investigation is greatly appreciated. And we do follow through on all of these investigations. As a note, with the volume of complaints that we have come through, we would ask that if somebody requested a follow-up, which a lot of people would like to know that, to simply let the dispatcher know that you would like to be contacted related to the follow-up of the investigation. And we'll be glad to get back with you in some cases on that to let you know how it worked out. In closing, on my part, I'd like to mention that enforcement agents in this state, we really address the litter in 3 different ways. It would be by just observing direct violations, then the investigations of litter dump sites that we find on our routine patrols, and then our complaints based off of our anti-litter hotline.
Rick, I have a couple of questions. Do you know how many calls come through on that hotline a year? And also, can you speak to the procedure of the follow-up?
Yes, ma'am. So the direct number, I don't have those numbers in front of me. Those numbers are not broken down by, specific calls, but that's something that we could look at in the future. But as far as the follow-ups, with the volume that we do receive, a large majority of our calls that come in are particular calls that we may not be able to follow up on with much success. So we do not have a policy in place to follow up with every person that calls in based off of the volume of calls that we have coming in with our other hotlines that run through our dispatch as well. But if a particular individual that calls in a complaint would like a follow-up, they simply can put that in their request when they call, and we'll make our best effort to keep them in the loop and follow up with them down the road.
And the procedure for follow-up on the complaint?
The complaint would simply be assigned to a particular agent in that area, and that agent would begin an investigation to see what we could come up with. And at that point, once an investigation concluded with a possible citation, and we would forward that investigation to the district attorney for prosecution, then we would gladly reach out to the complainant and just let them know that a citation was issued and that it had been forwarded for prosecution. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Trooper Scrantz, and I think he's got some information on us for state laws.
Thank you, Major. So Louisiana State Police, we operate at about 1,200 troopers, and that fluctuates depending on retirements and resignments. We have a good attrition rate when it comes to that. We do cover 64 parishes, just as Wildlife and Fisheries does. Our primary function as an organization would be highway safety and criminal enforcement, whether that be investigating vehicle crashes, investigating fatality crashes. We do a lot with impaired driving enforcement, essentially DWIs. Our primary littering tickets are issued when we visually observe it while patrolling on the highways, or we receive what we call a BOLO, be on the lookout, from a Good Samaritan calling in to complain on a fellow motorist littering. Actually, just this morning, a fellow trooper wrote a littering ticket for someone flicking a cigarette butt out that struck his windshield. I've seen that very often on patrol, especially at night when someone doesn't see who's behind them. They don't realize it's a marked unit behind them. So we always encourage motorists who do see someone littering to dial star LSP. That's also star 577. And that connects you to the nearest troop that you're traveling next to. And the primary statute that we do enforce would be 2531 for anyone interested in looking up the exact verbiage of that law. And we also work closely with DEQ, with our emergency service unit, also known as HAZMAT, and with Wildlife and Fisheries on keeping Louisiana beautiful. And I'd be happy to take any questions at this time if you have any.
Thank you, Taylor. May I ask where that citation was written?
It was written on Interstate 10 at Highland Road, right next to Troop A headquarters. We see it very often on the interstates. The vast majority, like I said, of the tickets that troopers do write is ordinarily when they're driving and someone isn't aware that a trooper is in the near proximity of them, and they throw either, hate to pick on McDonald's again, like Mike did, make my McDonald's bag or cigarette butt, Coke can, whatever it may be. We certainly enforce that when we see it. It's just a matter of gaining the evidence in order to do so. And that's the beauty of body cameras and in-car cameras as well that capture that.
Excellent. Well, we thank you for your service, and hope that you stay safe. Would you and Rick stick around to the end of the session? We might have some more questions.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Taylor. Poor McDonald's. I have to say, my brother is an executive with McDonald's, and he would not be happy that we pick on him. But I understand. I do the same thing. Next, we have a guest, Rick Moore. Surveillance cameras can be a great enforcement tool to help you crack down on illegal dumping activity when used correctly. The camera styles, the installation, and this is a big one, the supervision and maintenance make a huge difference in whether or not your program is a success with surveillance cameras. Here with us this morning is our friend Rick Moore, who has a great amount of success with surveillance cameras. Rick is director of Keep St. Tammany Parish Beautiful. He's a St. Tammany Parish Constable, and he's revered statewide for his commitment to litter enforcement and his willingness to share his knowledge with other cities to improve their litter enforcement efforts. He has established an innovative approach to litter court, which has become a model program for local governments. That litter court handbook is also available at keeplouisianabeautiful.org if anyone is interested. His work managing Keep St. Tammany Beautiful and the parish's litter abatement crews have made a significant impact on the cleanliness and safety of the community of St. Tammany Parish. And I welcome to this morning, Rick Moore. Good morning.
Well, Cobble, that's a great introduction. I really appreciate that. And I won't pick on McDonald's. I'll pick on Burger King instead. I mean, that'll make you happy, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to this program today. Keep Louisiana Beautiful has asked me to come and introduce or talk about the surveillance cameras, how they're used, the possibility of 3 different types of cameras that I'm familiar with. And, you know, these cameras are used basically to capture illegal dumping and litter violators. I mean, that's the whole purpose of these cameras. Placement of these cameras are a major factor. And I only have 15 minutes, so I'm kind of limited to time to explain these cameras. But what I'm going to basically do is just capture the highlights of the cameras for you, so that folks can see the variety of cameras that are used out there and what they're capable of doing. The first screen you see right now is the Zomodo outdoor camera. Well, thank you. There it is on my screen. I'm glad you brought that up. Thanks. And this one is one that I've used over the years. It's capable of handling 2 cameras, up to 8 cameras. But the major factor of this one is it's versatile, but it's very technical camera. So what I'm saying by that is that to use this camera, you got to have some type of expertise because it's involved as far as a package is concerned in a system that you put together. Go to the next slide for me, if you will, Cabell. This is a close-up of the cameras. The package comes in 2s and pairs, about $85 for the pair, which is pretty reasonable. That's the model number of these particular cameras. And don't get nervous about it that the camera's white because they are paintable. You could paint them, you could wrap them in camouflage tape, or also called a wrap, to camouflage them. But these cameras go with a system. That's why I was discussing with you, telling you about it. It's technical. So if you don't mind, go to the next slide, Cabell. Okay, when I say package, it's this system, and I'm using this system first because it's the most involved. But this is one that you may need someone to help you design it. Now, this is a inverter. Now, the inverter comes with this package to invert the DC to AC power in order to run the cameras. It's needed to power the 5 amps of power for each camera. Next slide, please. In addition to that, we also need some type of internet service. Now, what I've used, and it works in the past for me, is a power pack. And Verizon has a good power pack, jet pack that we use. And our model number is MIFI, which is MiFi 8800L. It's a great jet pack. It's versatile. It can handle up to 15 devices on this jet pack. And when I say 8 cameras, it could probably handle more than 8 cameras, but 8 cameras is more than enough to capture whatever you're looking for with roads and traffic coming into a road, out of a road, capturing license plates, numbers, capturing visual on the offender making the dumping illegal, as well as the vehicle itself. So, I mean, it's this particular setup is very great, but again, it's technical. All the cameras are weatherproof. The system itself, as far as the electronic part of it, is placed in a waterproof box, so it does not get wet, and it's able to be outside. Next slide, please, Cabell. All right, in order to power the system, you don't have to do it this way, but this is just an option, is solar kits, solar panels. Now, solar panels are used, throughout the area. It doesn't have to be daylight to, direct sunlight to absorb energy. It could be ambient light that will do it as well. These solar kits are inline into the battery. Next slide, please, Cabell. It's wired into the system, and you got to have some type of charge controller to protect the battery source that you're using, because the solar panels do produce a lot of energy. And this charge controller actually controls the amount of charge going into the battery so it doesn't burn up the battery itself. Next slide. Oh, back up just a second. All right, so I just want to talk a little bit more about the Zomoto camera. I'm using it in 2 separate locations now. I can sit at my desk and look at my cell phone and know exactly what's going on. It's in real time. You don't have to wait on the image. It saves all the images to the cloud, and you're able to receive a alert on your phone. So when it activates, an alert comes on, you can go to your phone right away. Time is of the essence when you're trying to capture an individual who's actually doing the dumping, the illegal discharge. So it's a great tool. When you set it up and when you get the app goes on your iPhone, you could even scroll back in weeks prior to group area of hours, as a matter of fact, and just review those 1 hour or 2 that recording to capture whatever you need. You could save it as well. You could print out digital pictures of just one scene. So without a doubt, I think the Zomoto is one of the better ones that I've seen. But again, it's technical. Now, as far as the cost is concerned, overall cost for this particular system is about $750 for 2 cameras. And like I say, 2 come as a pair into the set that you purchase. You can buy them online, they're easy to find. If you go up to 8 cameras, you're looking at probably about $1,000 investment for this. But it's well worth it, and it captures what you're looking for fantastically. Now, secondly, go to the next slide if you don't mind, Cavill. Okay. The second camera I'd like to show you is a basic trail cam. And this is a cellular type of camera. It's the least expensive that you could probably purchase, you know, to receive a cellular signal. This is mainly used for game cameras, fields, deer, animal, wildlife type of thing. It's very sturdy, waterproof, easy to use. So this would be the camera that, if you're not technical savvy, you could use this camera, and it's easy to set up. It's sturdy. It sends images to your phone as well. However, it's all the data is saved on an SD card that's inside the camera, and you can get different size SD cards from 64 to 128 memory bank in there. Now these cameras will last a long time, up to 90 days in battery life, and like I say, this is basically it's a starter camera, meaning that if you're not familiar with how this works, this may be a good investment at $100 a camera to get involved in, to get your feet wet as far as learning how to do this. The image on these cameras are great. They're digital. They go out 80 feet. They have a surveillance, a night surveillance mechanism in them as well, which is very handy and captures what you need at nighttime. Okay, next slide, please, Cavill. Okay, the third camera that I'd like to present to you. Now, again, I'm using these brand cameras, style of cameras, because a lot of the other, few of the other law enforcement agencies across the whole state use this particular camera, the Reconyx professional law enforcement camera. Now, this one is a great tool to use. It comes in 2 different options. You have the Hyperfire covert camera, and then you have the Hyperfire cellular camera, covert cellular camera. Now, both of these are great products. Like I say, different agencies across the state, law enforcement agencies use these with huge success. The images that these bring back, and the images that they capture are used in court of law. These agencies have brought these cases in front of the judges and got convictions on illegal dumping and littering. So it's without a doubt, these have history as far as a positive response. The first one I'd like to introduce to you, if you don't mind, Cal, we'll go to, I'm sorry, I'm looking at a different screen. Apologize for that. I'm looking at 2 screens. Okay, anyway, the first one I'd like to introduce to you is the unit number 1, which is a Hyperfire covert camera. Now these are battery operated solid state cameras. They're used at nighttime for infrared, which have a great digital output. And the good thing about these cameras is you don't see the infrared light. It's blacked out. So if you use these cameras at nighttime and you're lucky enough to have the perpetrator close to the area where they're dumping, you'll be able to capture at least their car and maybe a visual of their face. But they're easy to set up. You can set them up within minutes. They're a great tool in the field. The only problem with the unit 1 camera that I'm showing you, which is a covert camera, is it's not cellular. So everything is stored on the camera. On an SD card, again, anywhere from a 64 to a 128 storage capacity. I recommend that you use 2 of them. The reason why is that if you could shine each camera to each other, so in the event that a camera is stolen, you're able to capture whoever steals the camera and perhaps get a prosecution on a theft charge on the person that's doing it. But all in all, this is one of the better cameras. I recommend this one as far as not being as technical as the first one I presented to you. And it's a great tool. It's activated by motion, which also saves the battery life of that camera. So it's not on constantly. It's only on when it's activated by a motion. It could be an animal, for that matter. It could be a vehicle driving through a passageway in a road. But it's a great tool. Secondly, the second unit I'd like just to bring to your attention is the Hyperfire cellular camera. Now, the cellular camera is basically the same one as the prior one I just mentioned to you, with all the fancy digital zooms and digital capability of capturing anything you like. However, this one is cellular. So basically what happens with this one is that all the signal comes back to your cell phone and it's captured into the cloud. There are some pros and cons about the signals, how strong the signal is in the area that you're using it. If it's way in the woods, you may have a problem with the cellular part of it. But again, I'm just in St. Tammany Parish, and the areas that we tried to capture, violators are close to cities. They're in dead-end streets. We don't really have an issue with cellular service. It's a camera that's, and this particular brand camera that Reconyx is used throughout the state, and it's a great tool. With that said, I know it was limited on time. I just wanted to bring to your attention 3 different style cameras that may fit your needs in your particular area. I know the state is different as far as rural and versus urban area. A lot of times in St. Tammany, our dump sites are close by. They're in subdivisions, they're construction sites, they're tires. I know Mike mentioned that a lot, and we have a huge problem with tires in our parish. And we use these cameras to try to capture those folks. We've captured at least 2 sets of groups that are dumping them out of the Slidell area. And as a matter of fact, just last week, we caught a group dumping 30 tires at a time. So it does work. I recommend it if your department, your locality can afford it. It's the way to go if you're able to set them up. In closing, I just wanted to show the comparisons of the cameras. That's what the Keep Louisiana Beautiful asked me to do. I'm very familiar with the first. Thank you. I'm very familiar with the first camera because I'm the one using it. I'm the one who designed it as far as setting it up. The latter camera, which is a Reconyx, is a great camera. It has great reviews. It has history with the law enforcement agencies across the state. So I recommend that one as well. But with that said, if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them. But I know folks like to look at the price and differences between them all. Just real quickly, I just want to kind of give you a heads up on the price. The Zomoto camera, basically, if you have 8 cameras, is about $1,000 investment for that. The SkyPoint, like I said, is about $100 a piece, and you need at least 2 of those to do any functionality as far as capturing digital. And as far as the Reconyx cameras, you're looking at $400 a piece, for the ones that are all self-contained. And of course, these are lockable boxes that can go around trees, telephone poles, stumps that can be on the ground if you need be. So they're very versatile. And as far as the cellular type, those are about $600 a piece. So you need 2, that's about $1,200. Now keep in mind, When you talk cellular, you're talking money, monthly investment, because you have to have some type of plan. Now, the first Zomoto plan would be the Verizon, which is going to cost you about $35 or so a month. Now, the other plans with the other two, it's based on data transfer. So you can have a plan that's $10 a month up to $40 a month. It all depends what you want. But though that service comes with the camera. So when you order the camera, purchase the camera from the manufacturer or the distributor, I should say, they'll explain all that to you. Okay, so with that said, Cabell, that's all I have. I didn't want to take too much time and I couldn't get into too much in depth, but if you have any questions later on in the program, I'll stick around and answer.
Yeah. Would you mind taking a couple of questions right now, Rick?
Sure.
Well, that is fantastic information on
That's my wife back there, by the way.
surveillance cameras.
You gotta watch her.
How are you?
She's adjusted a piece, so I gotta watch what I do.
Yes, we all do. Rick, how is, or rather, I should say, what is the best way that municipalities, parishes can prevent these cameras being stolen?
Well, the best way is to hide them as best as you can, and with make them camouflage for the area. Now you're gonna have different areas. Now you're gonna have wooded area. It may be a one set of colors that you need on the camera. Then you're gonna have a urban area, which is a lot of sidewalks, concrete, streets that have intersections. Now, what I like to have is have them higher up in the air. Like, for instance, mount them higher up on poles and trees. The reason why I like, look, everybody's different. Every municipality is different how they use these things. I like the first one because you have a set of these cameras all over the place. So you can be able to capture as much as you can, and it goes to the cloud and you can save it. So if anyone does steal it, more likely you'll be able to track them down, especially if you get a license plate. Now, what's coming up in the future, which I'm really excited about, is those same cameras I mentioned to you, which are those Zomatos. They're making them in battery pack, which means every camera is a battery. So you don't have any wires, you can put them anywhere, and you can go within a distance of 100 feet for the signal. So which that signal comes back to that jetpack I was referring to. Now, and that's exciting because it eliminates a lot of problems. It eliminates your battery boost for your cameras as well as your solar panel and your inverter. But it's something that's new, real new. My son and I are working on it right now, trying to figure out how to eliminate the AC part of all of this, because all these cameras are actually DC cameras. They're not AC cameras. You got to convert the DC to AC to make it work. But they're technically DC cameras.
So, Rick, for camera programs that don't work at catching the offenders, what do you think that is usually attributed to? Is it the camera positioning, or is it the lack of supervising the tapes and the information?
Well, it could be camera positioning, but it's timing. Everything's timing. It's a lot of cameras that I see with law enforcement, they put them out there and use the battery pack that's built into the camera, and you can't go out and check them, because if you go out and check them too often, you're liable to scare some folks off and disturb what's out there. But positioning of the camera is a key factor. The workmanship of the camera, as well as maintaining it. I mean, someone's got to get out and maintain it and get out there and check it all the time, unless you do the cellular type, and you can watch it every day. You can sit on your desk at your office and just kind of leave it on all day and just watch it if you wanted to, if you're that into it. And if you have a hot spot that you really want to capture somebody, like these tire dumpers, the illegal tire dumpers, which are all criminal charges. I mean, I like what Mike said about the gross littering, because we use gross littering in St. Tammany Parish as well. And so it catches a lot of different folks, and it's a criminal charge up to $500 in our parish. And once you give someone a ticket for littering, believe me, they'll watch you the next time, and they will learn their lesson, and not just tires, but just everything. Because we do have a huge problem here in St. Tammany, especially since the COVID's here. We don't have our 3 abatement programs going. They've been shut down. So littering is becoming a huge problem, not just in St. Tammany, I'm sure all over. Because the state prisoners aren't allowed out the prisons right now, and our community service workers are limited to 2. So it's, it's going to come back. Trust me, it'll be back, and hopefully by next year. And but in the meantime, the public's fussing. They're calling, complaining about the littering, and I return their calls. We try to explain to them. They just be patient. It's just the times that we're living in.
Right. It'll be back.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Thank you, Rick. Will you come back at the end of the session? Give us a few more minutes. Thank you.
Sure. I'll hang around. No problem. Okay.
I also want to mention that the SMOTO outdoor surveillance cameras that information is available on our website, keeplouisianabeautiful.org. That camera is available at Amazon and Walmart. So Rick will be back shortly. Next, we have somebody from Calcasieu Parish. So in 2018, the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury conducted a citizen survey with litter identified as the second most important concern to residents, followed behind drainage, which we all know those 2 go hand in hand. These results led to the development of a comprehensive litter initiative called Pick It Up Calcasieu. The effort focuses on reducing litter by increasing awareness and education, engaging businesses and individuals to clean up, providing programs and resources, and strengthening enforcement efforts. The enforcement efforts included establishing a litter hotline, appointing a litter enforcement officer, and creating an online citizen reporting tool. This morning, we have with us Yvette Pryor-Cousin, litter manager for Calcasieu Parish Jury and director of Keep Calcasieu Beautiful. Yvette oversees the newest program for Calcasieu, Pick It Up Calcasieu. Adopt a Spot and enforcement are the cornerstones of the successful efforts under her leadership. Yvette has a deep passion for helping others and a desire to make a difference in her community and in the state of Louisiana. Welcome, Yvette. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure and a privilege to be here with everyone on today. I'll go ahead and get started. Back in 2019, I was hired to work on an initiative to combat litter in our area. The goal of the initiative was to promote a clean Calcasieu Parish and to get everyone involved. And when I say everyone, we're talking about other municipalities, businesses, schools, etc. We did it, next slide, through the Pick It Up Calcasieu initiative. Pick It Up Calcasieu is not just about words, but it's about action. See, in the past, we had actually done several things to try to deal with the litter issue in our area. And for one reason or another, it just didn't get us to where we wanted to be. So what was done was that an entire department was dedicated to this cause in this area to try to deal with the litter issue. I have a wonderful administration as well as police jury who stands behind me in this effort. The title of this initiative, Pick It Up Calcasieu, was actually created by a local ad agency by the name of the O'Carroll Group. Without these teams of individuals, I could not do what I do on today. The O'Carroll Group is also behind a lot of the PR for this initiative. Our key areas of focus are pick up and cleanup, education, public awareness, and enforcement. Next slide. So you may ask, well, how did we get here? Our motivation for this came because, as Cabell stated in the introduction, back in 2018, the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury conducted a citizen survey. In that survey, citizens indicated that drainage and litter were 2 issues that they felt were really important. Those were the things that came to the top of the list. Due to that, we said this was something that we needed to do. We needed to get these issues dealt with. You may have litter and drainage issues in your area as well. Next slide. Okay. Our goal for this initiative is to change the attitudes toward litter, get residents and businesses involved, and to work with local law enforcement. In addition to these goals, we wanted to make sure that we promoted our residential solid waste and convenience centers. We have 2 of them. What we found was that a lot of the citizens didn't even know that these places existed, nor did they know that they could use them free of charge. So that was really important to us. We also wanted to have a full-time litter officer dedicated to the effort. Paul Butler is the person who handles that for us currently. We also totally revamped our Adopt a Spot program. We did that in a number of ways. 2 of the key things that we did a lot of different things, but 2 of the key things were, one of which we found that when citizens would call and they were outside of the Calcasieu Parish, wanting to adopt a road that was outside of Calcasieu Parish, we would have to send them over to another agency. So for example, if they contacted us and they were wanting to adopt a road that was inside the city limits of Sulphur, we would have to send them over to Sulphur. Well, what we did was we decided to work with cities like Sulphur and Benton and Lake Charles, etc., so that if someone called and they wanted to adopt a spot that was outside of Calcasieu Parish, but in some of those other areas, they could still call that one number, which would be to me, and then we would be able to get that taken care of. That was really important to us, those partnerships, being there for our citizens and trying to make the process as easy as possible. And we feel like that has worked for us quite well. We really focus on the key areas that I mentioned before, but we're also focused on those community partnerships, like with businesses, local law enforcement, other municipalities, school board, as well as faith-based organizations, private nonprofits, and our neighborhood associations. All of these people are key into us being able to do what it is that we need to do. Partnerships are important. Without working together, we could not get to where we need to be. Let's go on to the next slide. Now, here are some of the program highlights. Some of the things that happened within the first 4 months of the program. We had over 100 reports of litter to our litter hotline, which we'll talk about in a few slides. We had 42 businesses displayed our Pick It Up sticker. And basically what this is a sticker that just says, dear customer, thank you for helping to keep our business clean. And it would have the Pick It Up Calcasieu logo. The thing about that and we would only put it at locations where the businesses were about the initiative and wanting to have the area clean. So we had 42 of those. We did 8 school presentations, 3 civic clubs like Rotary and things like that, going to those and speaking to those groups, 2 Adopt a Spots, and 17,378 solid waste center visits. So those were people that went to our solid waste and convenience center within that 4-month time frame. Now, just like with anything, there are challenges. So right now, some of the challenges that we're faced with, and you heard Mr. Rick Moore actually even mention that, is COVID. So we don't have our litter crews out right now due to that fact. And so with COVID, that's an issue for us. But also the fact that 2 major hurricanes hit our area. So we have a lot of debris and a lot of things like that. But the thing that we're focusing on with regard to that is to show the citizens that we're a resilient community and to show them that we're going to be restored and just as strong as we were before. And so we've had to shift our focus right now. But it doesn't mean that we're not going to go back to and be that strong community, that beautiful community that we once were. There's a little bit of debris everywhere, but we're going to get that handled and dealt with and get back on track. Next slide. Now, one of the things that we also did is we did a lot of commercials. We publicized in the newspaper as well as social media. What we did is we had a website that's only for Pick It Up Calcasieu. So it was moved out from underneath the Calcasieu Parish Police website, and a separate website, separate social media, and everything for the Pick It Up Calcasieu initiative. What I would like to do is I'd like to right now share with you one of the radio commercials that we did.
We've been encouraging Calcasieu Parish citizens to get involved with the litter problem in our beautiful parish and pick it up. And you know what? It's working. Groups, individuals, and families are all doing their part to pick it up around Calcasieu Parish. They're adopting spots along our roadways to clean up. They're picking up their own yards and neighborhoods. They're dropping off their big trash at the parish's solid waste convenience centers. They're teaching their kids never to litter and to keep our parish clean. Let's keep it up and keep picking it up.
A message from the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury.
We also created several commercials. The one that I'm going to share with you today is really one that we use for the kickoff. Prior to the kickoff, we did huge meetings with local law enforcement. We did meetings with local businesses and things like that to work to get everyone on board. And we still have some more work to do there. But what I'd like to do is to share this commercial with you. This commercial actually features those that were in the office, elected officials in the office at the time. Some of them are no longer in office, while some of them are. I'd like to go ahead and show that right now.
We have a litter problem here in Calcasieu Parish, and the police jury needs everyone's help to change it. Pick it up, Calcasieu.
Elected officials, business groups, and volunteer groups, we need your help. Pick it up, Benton.
Get your group to adopt a spot or road. Pick it up, Lake Charles.
Use the 2 free parish dump sites. Pick it up, Sulphur.
Visit our website, like us on social media, and use our hashtag, Pick It Up Westlake.
Law enforcement's on board. Pick it up or we'll be writing tickets.
Fines are expensive and we will prosecute. Pick it up, Calcasieu.
This can be the beginning of a cleaner, healthier, and better parish. Join the movement and pick it up.
We can go to the next slide. We also created a litter hotline for litter reporting, 493-LITR. This was something that was actually been in play for a really long time, even before I came along. So what we did was we really wanted to try to make sure that we promoted it and letting people know that there's a number that you could call locally to be able to report any sort of litter issue or litter complaint. Next slide. We also have a place on our website where you can do that. So if the person didn't necessarily want to have to get on the phone to call, they could actually go onto the website and put the information in there, and then it would come directly to us. There's also an area where they can also report a business who has an issue with litter. And so we've actually received quite a bit of those as well. Once we get this information, especially for those that are the ones where they're reporting like a license plate, we work with our local sheriff's office to find out who those people are so that we can write them a letter and say, hey, look, we know that this is something that you've done and trying to address it that way. Once we've contacted them, and if we notice that they've done it again, that's certainly something that we do make sure that we try and cite. Now that's for little bitty things, not like illegal dumping, because we had those types of things as well and had to work with our local law enforcement and others to deal with those types of issues. But these are just more of those things like cigarette butts and cups and things of that nature. And so we found that this has worked quite well, and we really do get quite a bit of people to call. If I'm sitting here at my desk, because usually the calls come here through this line, if I'm not here, then it rolls to someone else so that we can answer it. In the event that we aren't here, though, they do have the opportunity to leave a message. Let's go into our next slide. Now, one of the things that we found to be quite amazing when we started off on this process was that there were so many citizens who really wanted to know what they could do to get involved, but not necessarily just citizens. I mean, businesses and so many people that wanted to do something. So much so that I'll tell you a quick story. I know we're kind of running out of time here, so I'm going a little bit fast, so excuse me. But for the city of Westlake in particular, there was a big Adopt a Spot event that we did there. Those citizens turned out in record numbers and literally adopted each of the areas to clean within that area, within that community, within that city. And so because of that, and we saw how people really wanted to do things and they really wanted to get involved, that we wanted to make sure that on our website, we had a place where they can get information to do that. If we could go on to our next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. And so on this particular part of our website, residents can actually go and find out information that they may need as far as how to have a clean lifestyle, where they could go to sign up to like adopt a spot or to get other types of information. Businesses can go here also. And one of the things that we've done for businesses is we've provided them, should they like one, with customized pick it up logo. So like we've given them to Golden Nugget, pick it up Golden Nugget. We've done it to pick it up McNeese, different ones, and we'll provide them with a custom logo as well as any other sort of promotional items that they would like. And then there's also an area for schools where they can go and get information. So we wanted it to be a place where they could readily go and have access to information. Next slide. That concludes my presentation. I want to just thank you all. And at this time, I'll be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Yvette. Could we have all of our presenters back? We don't have any questions, Yvette. I see another conversation happening. We are out of time, unfortunately, today. I'd like to thank all of our presenters for being with us, and for all of our attendees and all of our presenters, thank you. We hope that you have enjoyed the virtual state conference this year and hope that you have added a few more tools to your toolbox. I'd like to thank all of you again, and also a special thank you to Ashley and Jillian with NOCCI, an event and marketing company in New Orleans that have been behind the scenes producing these webinars, making us look professional, working with our presenters, and overall making sure things run smoothly. Thank you, Ashley and Jillian. We will miss you, actually. On behalf of Keep Louisiana Beautiful Board of Directors, Advisory Board, and staff, we thank you for all that you do, all of the presenters, all of the attendees. You are the best of the best, and you care for your community. You love our state, you aspire, you inspire. Louisiana needs you. Please continue your work and continue carrying the torch. You all are the heartbeat of this organization and the driving force to bring communities together for a cleaner, more beautiful place to live and play. To everyone, have a beautiful and a safe Thanksgiving. Have a beautiful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.